sales of the Shanghai China Auto Show for 2019, electrification is front and center. Every brand that wants to sell in China has to be partnered with a Chinese car company and in addition offer electrification. Although this is not going to happen overnight, replacing the grid, nuclear power, and other things need to be addressed. The country of China has decided to reduce their EV credit. This can impact consumers because no matter where you live in this world, it's about the almighty dollar. We discussed that recently on an international television show.
Promise not to raise them for now. They even offer incentives on the models to compensate for the cuts. However, this is only temporary.
Cutting subsidies will force companies to fully limit costs and upgrade technologies so the products can be good enough to offer a competitive price.
Experts say in the long term it is beneficial to consumers. The government is now shifting aids from cars to charging poles and hydrogen stations. Better services and facilities will eventually encourage more purchases. Sun Tianyuan, CTGN, Beijing.
Lauren Fix joins me now from Lancaster, New York. She's an automotive expert who is also known as the car coach. Lauren, you know, reports show that electric car sales are actually up in China. So how will the subsidy cut impact buyers there? Will companies eventually have to pass the cost down to them?
Well, you had 99% growth in electric vehicles in China, which is great, but once they cut the subsidies, just like here in the U.S., the biggest problem is going to be consumers using that subsidy to help lower the price of the car. So with sales being down on sedans and SUVs in China right now, partly because of the tariffs and going back and forth with the U.S. trying to resolve this issue, I think it's going to impact the whole sales of vehicles. Electric vehicles are a big problem because they are trying to mandate electric vehicles, and there were incentives, so people were buying them. They wanted to comply. They wanted to buy lots of Chinese vehicles as well as vehicles from other countries. So now that you remove that subsidy, people will look for good prices, good value, good quality, which is where you're going to start seeing products like the Audi e-tron, the Jaguar I-Pace. Buick has a vehicle that's also all electric, and other manufacturers. So I think it's going to really inspire people to look at their options, and those that cannot afford electric vehicles won't buy them. But the big problem is the same problem we're having on a global basis, which is infrastructure, and the charging grid itself has to be updated, and China's been quite proactive in trying to work with that.
So we know that the Chinese government wants to shift the focus, in part with these subsidies, to focus on the EV infrastructure. You mentioned that is still the biggest challenge, but how long will it take to keep up with all of these new cars?
Well, if today we were to remove all combustion engine vehicles, and that includes diesel, which is compression, and go to an electric base, you would need to have substantially more power than you could produce. That would mean you would have to go with nuclear power. You'd have to look at coal and some other options, natural gas. This is a big problem, and a problem that we have even here in the U.S. Plus, you have to remember the grid needs to be updated, and it has to support the whole entire country. And so, of course, initially you'll start with large cities, which could be done in a shorter period of time. Again, it always comes down to dollars and cents. And of course, I have to say, one of the things that China's doing that we're not doing here in the U.S. is they're looking at nuclear power, which is actually quite a smart solution to get that power to the grid.
We heard the word competition, that this could be good in the long run. Will this weed out the smaller car makers when it comes to electric vehicles and new energy vehicles?
Well, I think when it comes to competition, and of course it always comes down to the factor of pricing as well as quality, that you're going to be seeing other manufacturers coming into the market with lower priced vehicles. And then you're going to see that at the Shanghai Auto Show as well. And I think a lot of these new products that are coming out are going to offer smaller vehicles, vehicles that are better priced for consumers, because if they don't have the incentive, they won't buy that. They'll go back to regular diesel or gasoline powered vehicles.
When you say smaller price, are they going to be affordable at some point? I mean,
yep. Yes, I think they are. I think the biggest problem with the battery electric vehicles in itself is the cost of the vehicle. Part of that is cobalt, lithium, cadmium, mercury, and neodymium, which are rare earth minerals that all have to be mined, and therefore they have to be turned into batteries. So the cost of producing these batteries, no matter how many they produce, at this point in time until the battery technology changes, and again, that could be at any point in the future, and certainly not tomorrow, we're looking at potentially 10 years or greater, then the price of these vehicles will be more reasonable. But at this point, we have to look at twofold. One, the cost of the battery, and on the other side, China will have to look at what are they going to do with all these batteries once they're all used. I think that's a huge factor that's not being addressed anywhere across the globe, that these old batteries are not recyclable. You cannot take the eggs out of the cake. In this case, you cannot remove the cobalt, which is very harmful to humans and the environment. You can't remove that from the battery, and that's going to be the future. Is the first one to come to market to find a way to recycle these batteries will probably be your next large corporation.
Great point. And again, like you said, one we don't hear very often. Lauren Fix, thank you as always.
Check out some of the other videos we've done over here. Of course, subscribing, links, and all forms of social media are down below. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for watching.